Getting it real with RealChunWai on the hottest topics, frank, engaging and candid. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. The 6 state elections have just been concluded. But what does it mean for Malaysia and the unity government over the next 4 years? Let's hear it from political scientist Wong Huat of Sunway University.
Salam bahagia Malaysia and followers from around the world. The 6 state elections have just been concluded. So now we're going to talk about what is the significance and what's the impact for Malaysia and for the unity government headed by Dr. Anwar Ibrahim over the next 4 years. With us to hear is Dr. Wong Huat from Sunway University. Okay, Doctor, let's hit it straight. What is the most significant development from the PRN or the state elections?
This one is actually the UMNO vote base being torn between two suitors. On one hand is Perikatan Nasional, the other hand is Pakatan Harapan. UMNO wanted its base to shift over to PH, but the outcome showed that more than half of its base went to PN. This is actually what people read as the expansions of the green wave. This is very different if you compare this with GE15. In GE15, because the green wave, when we talk about the green wave, that was caused by an expansions of PN supporters from new voters. This one, we are looking at basically transfer of votes from UMNO to PN. And that has strong implication, far-reaching implication to Malaysian politics. Because if UMNO collapse entirely, you would see PN expanding even more.
So, Professor, are you saying that the shift, particularly by the Malay voters to PN, is not exactly an ideological wave, but more because that many Malay voters do not find UMNO appealing anymore. There's a lot of resentment over the leadership of UMNO in particular, and I felt that, look, I can't give my vote to PH because it's part of UMNO is part of the equation, but I give my vote to PN because I just cannot accept UMNO for what it is, rather than because the Malay voters support the past. Is that correct?
Largely true. Certainly, there has been an ongoing growth of Muslim nationalists and conservatives on past side. No doubt about that. But the larger shift is really out of rejection of UMNO, which could be explained in two ways. One, rejections of the current leadership at the federal level and at the state level. If you go to Perikatan Nasional rallies, you would hear the most popular name being mentioned is actually the UMNO president. They use that as a symbol of UMNO corruptions, of hypocrisy of the unity government, to drive home the point that if you disagree with this, you would have to vote against both UMNO and PH. Second part, I would argue that this is caused by the rejections of PH and UMNO coming together as one singular front. It's two different things when we talk about UMNO and PH forming coalition government, post-election coalition government, sharing power, and that they go into election together as a common front. Reason being that many UMNO voters would find that, and this is being exploited by PN in their rallies, if you go and listen to them, that UMNO has no chance of overtaking PH as a larger component. Therefore, to support this line-up, meaning to support the fate of UMNO playing second fiddle to PH.
So this is where we come to the oxymoron of the whole situation. We find UMNO members, UMNO supporters who would have voted UMNO or Barisan Nasional previously have found it very hard to transfer the votes. So they voted PN out of frustration. But in doing so, they would also have continued to weaken the UMNO that they would have loved. Many of them are still party members, a lot of frustration, but they voted for PN because they just cannot accept what it is. We also saying that you mentioned that if they were in PH, okay, they are now in PH, okay, they'll be playing, well, not second fiddle, third fiddle. You have PKR, DAP, and then only UMNO. But if they were to assume that they continue to support the PN, they will continue to be still, even if they were to join and work with PN, they will still be third fiddle because you have PAS first, Bersatu, and then only UMNO. So the UMNO is in a precarious situation where, as you said, that they're torn between two sides, but they would be neither here and neither there. So how do you think that UMNO could get out of this situation?
Well, as you say, that UMNO is caught in this situation. This is being with PH as the junior partner is certainly better to be a junior partner with PN, because that it would make itself the third largest, the third party after PAS and Bersatu.
Yeah.
Both of whom are competing for the same crowd. In PH, in this unity government, UMNO and PH base have only a little overlapping. So it's relatively safe for them. And they were given the prestigious post of first deputy prime minister. In that sense, UMNO should stay with this unity government. But what it should happen in the state election, in the next election, which is quite unlikely, quite impossible if we want to go back for the state election, but it's certainly possible for the GE16, is that UMNO and PH should formulate a new way of friendly matches in constituency that either both or at least one party is strong. Why so? Let's say if you have such a situation, UMNO would be able to contest in most states more than half of the constituency. That gives their party member that say, if I go out to vote, I have a chance to make sure that my party would end up as a senior partner in a coalition government with PH rather than the junior partner. And the same thing work for PH supporters. If I do not go out to vote, I'm weakening PH, making it more likely to be the junior partner. What they do then is that only in constituency where they face very strong PN challenge, they put up a common candidate so that you would not split vote against each other. Now, the friendly matches probably may just take up 30, 40% of seats, or maybe lesser. But the whole idea is to give that, to make the election outcome open-ended. You would have UMNO and PH in the same government, but who would be number one, who would be number two, depends on the voter's choice.
As the dust begins to settle down, which will maybe take a week or two, there's still a lot of raw feelings, a lot of anger, especially among the past, especially among the UMNO members, okay, that they have been really wiped out and they cannot deliver the Malay votes. It is in a situation where they find very hard to accept, even though when you look at the figures, the decline of UMNO actually started maybe in 2018, or some argued before then. Perhaps Zahid has aggravated the situation. It's very hard for UMNO, which has been the leading party over the last 60 years, to suddenly find themselves in this situation. So a lot of raw feelings has been expressed. Some of the ideas are actually very hard to accept. We have here talks of maybe the three Malay parties should gang up together, PAS, Bersatu, and UMNO, talks of mono-ethnic Malay coalition. And of course, in the recent state elections, the narrative of them versus us did not help the situation. When you hear this talk of mono-ethnic coalition, of course, it's very disturbing to many non-Muslim Malaysians. Okay, when I hear this, I find that wow, where is Malaysia heading towards? Of course, there have been many articles written by writers who say that look, UMNO has got 4 years to fix things. Time is running out, and if he cannot get it right, in 4 years' time, we actually could have PAS, which is now the biggest party running the country, which of course terrified many non-Muslims, me included. Over the next 4 years, what should the unity government, what should the Prime Minister do to take Malaysia or stir Malaysia into a much more comfortable and more secure position, at the same time pacifying the unhappiness of the majority of the Malay voters, and of course not to lose the non-Malay voters which have been supporting the PH government? What do you think he can do or should do?
If Anwar has 4 years to fix that situation, I think there could be 3 things he needs to do. 1, strengthening UMNO, help UMNO to reinvent itself by encouraging managed leadership transition. Zahid is a liability to him and the government. More importantly, that to do this, PH and UMNO must get into the new mood of cooperation. Both sides would prefer each other as their first preference coalition government partner, but they would compete in a limited number of constituency in a friendly manner. That's number 1. Number 2, PH, of course, need to win more Malay support on its own and not outsource the job to UMNO completely. And this can only be done by not just improving on economic issues and so on. It needs to bring our politics away from ethno-religious contestation by highlighting more issues from non-communal angle, by highlighting common threat to Malaysia. Madani is a great idea, but it has not been as effective as it should be because it has been packaged as just something positive. But for a society deeply divided like Malaysia, most people like to believe they're threatened, they're endangered by people around them who are different from them. And you want to unite such a population, you need some common threats. So the government should drive the nation into a crisis mode, getting us to fight off our common enemy. Economic transformation due to challenges from Sino-American rivalry to AI and so on. Natural disasters caused by climate change and others. And to maybe next pandemic, you need the nations to move this way to go on. Now, third thing that Anwar should do is to show to its liberal and minority base, they are not being ignored. If their base feel that they have been taken for granted, they would turn to PAMU, Parti Aku Malas Undi, if not other parties. That would kill it. And how can Anwar do that? Anwar can introduce institutional reforms, which includes party lists and local government elections, which incidentally will help UMNO, starting from PH states.
You have mentioned before this Parti Malas Undi. Were there any impact of this? Because some said that in some of the areas in Selangor, which the PH won by 200 votes or lost by 200 votes, were this the result of voters not coming out to vote? Was that detected?
Yes, exactly. We look at it like in Taman Medan and also Gombak Setia. The margin was only 38 and then 30 and 58. These are so tiny. You could have 31 and 59 voters coming out voting for PH or UMNO and overturn the result.
Now, I want to talk about the unity government. It's coming to 9 months, and soon 1 year will just go and that with. Now, Of course, those who had advocated and supported the PH right from the beginning, there are complaints that the reforms have come in very slow. And some say that the people who should not be there in government or in the government position are still there. Why are they still there? Reform has been slow. And some would even say that it's more of the same. We didn't see any much difference from the previous government and now. So there's this frustration which has piled up, and these are part of the people who just refuse to vote. You have mentioned a bit of what UMNO should do over the next 4 years. But do you agree with the assessment and the perception that reforms have been slow?
Well, we need to split the reform into three types. One is actually concerning identity politics, whatever can be seen as whether affecting the rights and the interests of one community or another. Type 1. Type 2, reforms that would affect inter-party relations, basically how opposition would be treated from policy, from allocations, from prosecutions in law and so on. And the thirds are policy reforms that involve public interest and economy. Now, the government has not done much almost at all on identity politics. That's understandable. I think most people would not complain after the first 22 months experience under PH. On the second part, the government definitely could do more, but I think they have not been doing enough, and that helped the opposition to cry wolf that this government is hypocritical and all the talks about reforms are false. And of course, to make it worse, you have a deputy prime minister facing 47 charges. And if he walks away, the government would lose if Zahid walk away because the AGC dropped his charges or whatsoever, the government would lose all its moral high ground. Now, the third part is about policy reform. How do we actually improve our economy, cutting down leakages and so on? The government has done some, but have not gone far enough. That's probably because of his weakness, worrying for the state elections, feeling wary of that. And now the election is over. I believe you would see more reform on the third part. And you certainly need to do more on the second part. The first part about identity politics, I would think that the government should keep the status quo for now, while fine-tuning the details. What it should not do is more banning of rainbow watches.
We can, now that the PRN is over, we can safely say that the cabinet reshuffle would be carried out. How extensive or how minor it is, of course, is another issue. 9 months, some say that some of the ministers have not performed. When they were in opposition, it was quite easy to say a lot of things. Now that you're in government, you find that it's much more harder. Some have shot themselves in the foot. What do you expect of this cabinet reshuffle that I'm sure is going to happen? Because anyway, there is at least one vacancy to be filled.
Yes.
What kind of moves that he could do to strengthen himself, strengthen the government, and to make the cabinet more effective? What do you think he can do, given that his hands is quite tight? When you have a unity government, your hands are tight. You got to accommodate many interests and many even demands. But what can he do and what should he do?
His coalition government has officially 16 member parties, of which I think 14 are represented in the cabinet. Basically, his hand would be tied because you cannot remove any of this party out of there. And because the smaller parties like BN, GPS, and GRS don't expect too much changes, except for UMNO, maybe one or two. His bigger options, room to maneuver, would be within PH, especially PKR. So I do not expect big changes. And if there is anything exciting, would be what would happen to Zahid. Because Zahid is unlikely to give up his party presidency. But it is possible as a gesture that his position in governments get adjusted.
Yeah, I I agree with the assessment that nothing will happen to the UMNO presidency. He'll be around. He is quite strong. He has hold the party structure very well with his supporters. Of course, unfortunately, a strong Zahid also means a weak UMNO, and that he'll be a liability not just to the Barisan Nasional but also to unity government. Nobody wants to talk about that. Some have been very sheepish in wanting to speak so bluntly, but we all know that this is the elephant in the room, and that UMNO is stuck with that position. Having said that, I'm just it crossed my mind that while UMNO was quite badly defeated in other states, how was UMNO able to hold on to Negeri Sembilan quite well? Why was it different from the rest of the other states?
Okay, first of all, we also need to recognize that in Negeri Sembilan, there's a growth of PN support, but not high enough to tip the outcome. Partly because PAS has been weak in Negeri Sembilan, and Bersatu is not particularly strong. But more than that, I would argue two more factors. In Negeri Sembilan, you have Tokmat, as compared to in Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, all the UMNO leaders were so outdated and disconnected from the ground. Secondly, in Negeri Sembilan, as manifested by the rumor of which party should have taken the MB-ship, the allocations of seats of 19 to 17 between PH and UMNO suggested that there was a chance that UMNO may actually emerge as the senior partner of the government. That for UMNO supporters means that they have a stronger motivation to go out to vote. If you look at in Selangor and Penang, not just that UMNO votes did not go to PH parties. They did not even support UMNO candidates as well, except in 4 constituencies where UMNO won.
Now, from the report so far, it's almost certain that in Penang, although I think they won 2 state seats, UMNO will get at least 1 EXCO seat, and possibly as the Selangor EXCO is being announced by next week, okay, that or at least by this Saturday, UMNO will probably get some extra EXCO seats. This readiness of PH to accommodate this UMNO leaders to be EXCO members, even though they did not win very strongly, do you think it would help in this UMNO's position in PH, and for UMNO members to begin to accept DAP, for example, and PKR as part of the unity government? Would it help?
Well, for those who have clear mind, they should know that this is the best that UMNO can ask for. To complain about that, that we are sacrificing 5,000 votes of Malay votes for 500 DAP votes, that's really not living in the reality. Okay. However, from PN side, even if both UMNO Aduns in Selangor and Penang are made EXCO, they would still be accused of being sidelined, because your enemies are unlikely to recognize whatever achievement that you have attained. That's a fact. So it's the whole question here, how to shift that. I think the realistic challenge here is that when the assembly open in Selangor and Penang, you would definitely have more Malays on the opposition bench than the government bench. And they would try to use that to attack. If both governments are bold and innovative, there's a way for them to resolve this. Both states have less than 30% of women adun. They can actually innovatively amend their state constitution to appoint top-up members, all women, just to fill it up, but allocate these seats proportionally to both sides. In that case, the government would get more non-Malay, they can fill in all Malay women candidates and improve their balance.
Yeah. Just want to go back a bit. I know that it's academic now. The role of Muda, where it split votes in at least 1 to 2 areas.
I think only one.
For Muda,
Yeah.
where does it go from here? Is it going to fade to oblivion? And you won't get a place in PH. You won't get a place in PA. Where does it leave them?
Muda never really never ever wants to be in PN. So I think the whole question here is that whether they can continue to get the support. They managed to threaten PH, even though last minute PH has more higher support. Otherwise, the support for Muda is actually a sign of discontent. Now, for Muda to go forward, I would suggest this very bold approach. Invest in Kelantan and Terengganu. Kelantan, you have very low turnout, 60%. That means that a lot of voters are not happy. They just cannot bring themselves to vote against PH or vote for UMNO and PH. Muda can actually invest in this. The other state is Terengganu, where you do not have one single opposition. And Muda did send a candidate contest in the Bandar seat in Kuala Terengganu. They should continue this. And in PH states, they have to push more on the issue, show that they are serious, and that would be the best outcome for them before GE16.
Okay, I think that there's something which I did not see. I agree with you, because then they will have a greater value added and will be able to present what they want on the table.
Yes.
Because right now they are unable to do so because both PH find them that look, you're not able to deliver anything for us. So why would we want you to be there? Well, that's one area that these two states perhaps is something that they should ponder about, since PK and DAP would not be able to deliver much. Now, coming back again to talk about what Anwar could do. Looking at his background, I think both of us will have can say safely that we have looked at his political career since very early days. He has got when he was during the 80s, 90s, of course, he pushed the Islamic credential quite strongly during his Abim days. And he introduced a lot of Islamic element to the government, international Islamic University, and many other things. Do you think that he will be tempted, to compete with PN on Islamic matters to get the votes? Do you think it helps? Do you think that he would do it?
I think he would have to do some gesture in defense, so not to expand the advantage of pass on this. But if he ever thinks that he can overtake PN in being more Islamist, he would be unrealistic, because the issue ownership lies with PN. And when voters make up their mind that if you want issue X, you go to party A, you can't beat party A. What you can do is shift to issue Y or Z. So that's what Anwar should do: defend his ground, but don't try to frog leap PN in this matter. I think his base, his liberal and minority base, are realistic enough that to accept that Anwar needs perhaps to throw in more money in Malay majority sectors, for example, the civil service, military, police, farmers, especially Felda and so on. They would tolerate that as like a price to pay to keep our cultural freedom. But if this government try to curtail the non-Muslim and the liberal lifestyle freedom in PH states, this government will face backlash, serious backlash. All they need to do is that about 20% of this voter turn to PAMU, and you could see PH government collapse in next election.
Huat, we know that it's a bit presumptuous, for Hadi to announce that look, we're ready for the federal government just after winning just 3 state seats, and of course they increase their seats. But would it be realistic to say that no political party or coalition can really form the federal government unless you have the 40 DAP, 40 overall DAP seats with you, and of course you have Sabah and Sarawak with you? Without this large chunk of votes for non-Malays and from Sabah and Sarawak, there's no way that PN can form the government. Is that a fair assessment?
It would be hard for you to form a federal government without Sabah and Sarawak. That's true. Technically, they can exclude DAP if they can get UMNO on board. But for UMNO to join PAS and Bersatu is like someone joining two of their brothers who share the same love interest. So it's not rational for UMNO to do so unless being pushed. For Sabah and Sarawak, they definitely are the kingmaker because they control a quarter of seats. They would join any government based on the best offer, provided that whoever make that offer have not alienated their base too much. This is where I think PN has been quite stupid in attacking the idea of Malaysia, which was espoused by Tun Dr. Mahathir, but in many ways echoed by their leaders in attacking the non-Malays, because this caused Sabahan and Sarawakians, including the Muslim, to be wary of a government under with such extreme position.
Yeah, the strong performance of PAS, as I said earlier, that it's caused a lot of concern for many Malaysians, especially non-Malays. So some, of course, is that what will happen in 4 years' time? Will the shape of Malaysia is going to change radically? Will we still be able to practice the kind of lifestyle that we have enjoyed since independence? Okay? Now, so I want to end this program by asking you this question: is there hope for Malaysia and for non-Malays?
Yes, there's certainly hope. Our politics has become less. Our politics has become less black and white as compared to pre-2018. However, there's a danger that we are now going back to a two-coalition system again, with a multi-ethnic versus a mono-ethnic one. That's dangerous. If we keep moving away from the two-coalition system by allowing parties to contest against each other, by having party lists, constituency seats added to our parliament, by even having local elections and decentralizations, then Malaysia would certainly become more open, but maybe not on a very fast pace. But to do all this, what you need to do is not to advocate all of this reform in the name of minority interests, because that would only be counterproductive. You have to articulate it because this is actually good for Malays. With the Malays politics being so divided now, anytime you could have almost half of the Malay voters not represented in the government. For example, in Kelantan, Terengganu, and Kedah, those who support UMNO and PH make up at least a third, but they have hardly any representations in Dun. For that, we need party lists, so that we need proportional representation, so that Malays can actually have more representation in government and not punished if they happen to be on the minority side.
You know what? Ahead of National Day, the state election is over. Sometimes we feel that there's too much politics in Malaysia. Race relationships have been affected because of this heavy campaigning and harsh words said about fellow Malaysians. I just want you to have the last word, and to all Malaysians who are watching this program in Malaysia and around the world, Huat, can you tell us that how we could strengthen the country, strengthen race relationships, that we may come in the different shapes, but we're all in the same boat, okay? As Martin Luther King said, ahead of National Day, can you please convey your message to people who are watching this program?
Thank you, Chunwai. Thanks for giving me this chance to express my wish to Malaysians. Malaysia would be strong as long as all of us do not give up, do not become pamu, do not think that we are incapable of shaping our nation's destiny. What we do and what we do not do have all their impacts. Specifically, what I would like to invite everyone is to join the call of Brussels for the government and the opposition to come to an all-party political peace deal so that we can move forward, reduce the unnecessary political attacks and instability so that our nation may seize the best opportunity when the world is transforming the economic structure and when the world is facing colossal natural disasters. Thank you.
Thank you,
Selamat,
Chin Huat.
selamat Hari Merdeka, selamat Hari Malaysia.
Thank you, Chin Huat. That was a nice way of closing. To all Malaysians, I just want to share this as well, like Chin Huat, that we are all fellow Malaysians. Our interests are the same, and our future will always be the same, regardless of race and religion. We are not competitors. The competition is outside. We are competing outside, not internally. And when we come together as one Malaysian, we'll be much stronger as a country and as a people. Selamat Hari Merdeka, and to Malaysians, please stick together and stay together. Thank you, Chin Huat, for joining us. Bye-bye.